There we go. There we go. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. We're going to get started. The purpose of the Meridian Arts Commission is to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance the quality of life for Meridian residents and its visitors. Today is Thursday, February 12th, 2026, and it is just after 3:30. We're gonna go ahead and get started with taking roll call. Lizzie Taylor. Here. Thank you. Sean Muscalo. Here. Thank you. Brecken Bird. Oh, just kidding, Brecken. Just kidding. Brecken's here, but not on the list anymore. Crystal Paulson. Thank you. Patrick O'Leary.
Here.
Bobby Gatton.
Here.
Thank you. Siyun Song. Here. Thank you. And Jay Smith. Here. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you. Crystal moves. Thank you. Sean seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to adopt the draft minutes from the January 8th, 2026 Meridian Arts Commission meeting?
Cheers.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second? Thank you, Sean. Seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is that today we have a special presentation for the Irma Heyman House, and we have Tanisha Eastman here with us. We're excited to have her here. She's going to share some information on how the Irma Heyman House celebrates some of our local history. So I'm going to turn the time over to her.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, just a note for anyone who's online, there is a short video that's part of this presentation. And for those of us in the room, the sound is going to play. But for anyone online, I think the sound might not play. So if you would like to see the video, then you can go to, and I can't figure out why there's not a chat in here, but you can go to irmaheymanhouse.org/explore/videos, and you can find the video there with sound.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Oh, that is weird.
Okay, our next order of business is that today.
I don't know how to fix this. Is it going to continue doing that? Emily, were you speaking?
Nope, I was just gonna tell you, I think it did fix itself. I don't know what happened either, but
Okay.
You're back to
If
normal.
you would like to see the video,
Online.
then you can go to, and I
Spoke too soon.
can't figure out why there's not a chat in here,
I'm
but you can go
going
to
to go check in the clerk's office.
irmaheymanhouse.org/explore/videos, and you can find the video there with sound.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Oh, that is weird.
Okay, our next order of business is that today.
I don't know how to fix this. Is it going to continue doing that? Emily, were you speaking?
Nope, I was just gonna tell you, I think it did fix itself. I don't know what happened either, but
Okay.
You're back to normal.
If you would like to see the video, then you can go to, And
Spoke
I
too soon.
can't figure out why
Okay,
there's not a chat in
I'm
here, but
going
you can
to
go to
go check in the clerk's office.
irmaheymanhouse.org/explore/videos, and you can find the video there with sound.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Oh, that is weird.
Okay, our next order of business is that today
Wow. I don't know how to fix this. Is it going to continue doing that? Emily, were you speaking?
Nope, I was just gonna tell you, I think it did fix itself. I don't know what happened either, but
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
you're back to
No,
normal.
You would like to see the video, then you can go to, and I
Spoke too soon.
can't figure out why there's
Okay,
not a chat in
I'm
here, but you
going
can
to
go to
go check in the clerk's office.
irmaheymanhouse.org/explore/videos, and you can find the video there with sound.
Okay. I'm going to restart the entire Zoom meeting. I'm sorry if you all can rejoin us in a second.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, we'll test this. Here we go again.
I'm gonna do a mic check. Can you all hear me?
No.
Oh, that would help. There we go. Thank you. Well, first, I would like to thank all of you. Thank you to Cassandra for inviting me to do this presentation on the Irma Hayman House. It is a very special place, and I'm always super excited to get the opportunity to share it with other people. So thank you so much. My name is Tanisha Eastman Dodson, and I am the Cultural Sites Program Coordinator for the Irma Hayman House specifically, but I work under the umbrella of the Boise City Department of Arts and History. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about the Irma Hayman House and what we do there and why it is so special. So I wanted to start out first with a short clip that shows you a little bit about the project behind this home.
There's supposed to be sound to the sound's not working.
It's okay.
I think the sound's not working on the video, so I guess we'll skip the video and everyone do some homework and watch it online.
Yes, please. Um, Thankfully, I work at this home pretty much every day. So I have a lot of information that can kind of fill in the gaps for what that video is. The video has a little bit more personality. You get to hear Mrs. Heyman's voice. You get to hear directly from her grandson, who is a huge asset to the house and is the reason why the city was able to preserve it as a cultural site. So please make sure to take some time and check that video out. But as we get into the history of why this site is so special, I like to start with the neighborhood itself. It is now classified as the historic River Street neighborhood. That is where Mrs. Heyman's home currently is located. It is located at 617 Ash Street. So that's right along River Street. That neighborhood kind of makes like a triangle if you look at it from an aerial view. It is quite small and it looks pretty similar to any average neighborhood you'd see, but it's got so much layered history behind it. And that is because post-World War II, it was one of the most culturally diverse areas in Boise. So that neighborhood, again, spans from about Front Street to the Boise River, and then from 10th to about Americana. This neighborhood also was so special because it housed a lot of working class immigrant families and a majority of Boise's African American families, to include some household names that we know in the area today. Mrs. Heyman's family included, but also people like Cherie Buckner Webb, who was a former legislator, Trish Walker, who is the CEO of the Idaho Black Community Alliance, Bessie Stewart, who was another neighborhood matriarch, Dorothy Buckner, who is the mother of Cherie Buckner Webb. So a lot of folks had their early roots in this neighborhood. The neighborhood was unofficially redlined, and it sat in the middle of a floodplain. And this neighborhood endured a lot of the faulty dam measures at that point in time. And so it was not a desirable place for people to live. But it unfortunately was one of the areas that many folks had to live because of housing discrimination. It was unfortunately known as the other side of the tracks. Geographically, that was accurate, but it was meant in a very derogatory way to describe the community that lived there. But what we do every day in the house is dig through those histories and try to match up stereotypes with what is true. And so what we did realize is, though they were on the other side of the tracks, they were not the things associated with that terminology. These people were very working class, but they had a lot of dignity. They were very communal, and they came together and made a lot of change, which is why this neighborhood now is so significant and historic. They overcame urban renewal threats in the 70s and 80s single-handedly, which is really great. This neighborhood was in its prime about in the 40s and 50s. And what that looked like was very ready-made homes, kind of closely put together, crammed together, unpaved roads, in a floodplain and with very minimal resources. And now it is a very nice area. There are several resources in the area. There's a child care center. There's a brewing company across the street, office buildings. Everything is paved, and there are unfortunately very little historic homes in the area. Now, Mrs. Heyman's legacy, I like to speak about her a lot because she is such a multifaceted lady. She is known as the neighborhood matriarch. One of them, she was a mother of three, and she's a centenarian. So she lived till she was 102. And she was living in the River Street neighborhood for about 61 years, starting in 1948, which is the year that she purchased her home. So she lived in River Street when it was at its prime, when it had more and more people starting to move there and it started to form its community. So she saw it at its best, at its worst, and she knew what it needed. As I mentioned, Mrs. Heyman's home and several other families' homes in this area were very humbly made, and they were placed in a floodplain. There are very limited resources, and they were living in the midst of industry because they were literally on the other side of railroad tracks. So railroad tracks ran through Front Street. And so often they would hear train cars, they would hear a lot of factory work happening. And they received a lot of low funding to create a safe neighborhood. So Mrs. Heyman, what she did, she created and served as the chair of the River Street Neighborhood Council. And she advocated for things like safe passage. So she is the reason why there is a crosswalk on 13th and River now. She's the reason why there are paved roads there. She advocated for resources so that the community could have a child care center. They did that by creating a neighborhood cookbook, which you can actually go and see at the Albertsons Library in Boise. And she also advocated for funding so that people could make repairs to their homes that were over time had dilapidated. And outside of that, she did have a very layered career as well. She spent time serving as a riveter. She was a waitress. She was a clothing display manager for about 20 years. And then when she was in her more mature years, she served as a senior nutrition program coordinator for Meals on Wheels. And the reason why her story is so powerful is because she demonstrated the impact of individual actions and the power of collective actions. So Mrs. Heyman was an incredible lady, but she was also incredibly ordinary. She made small acts that made a big change. And often we hear about these, millionaires or people who have a lot of power, have a lot of authority, who are able to make this kind of impact. But it is wonderful to hear stories about someone who's just like me and you, who was able to change the entire atmosphere of a neighborhood. And so that is why this site is so important. The city of Boise is currently building on their portfolio of cultural sites. So the Irma Heyman House is the second. The first cultural site that they have in their portfolio is the James Castle House. And the hope is to preserve more spaces like this. And the focus is preserving more tangible, lesser known human histories, knowing our own local history, knowing what's in our backyard. Spaces like this connect preservation, public art, and storytelling, allow for others to reflect. They also give us opportunity to represent, opportunities in the arts, opportunity to partner across cities, across organizations, across departments. and they allow us the opportunity to be supplemental education for our youth and the general public. And it also allows places like this to not be static. So a cultural site is slightly different than a museum in that this history is very much alive. This is a site that has lived in history, but it is also a site that history is being created presently. And that is through the following ways. So we have some exhibitions. We have had 4 exhibitions to date. The first one is Voices of River Street. So you'll see the picture of the neighborhood center. And that is our historical exhibition. Right next to it was a public art exhibition, and it was called Afro Blue, an Ode, Celebration, and Meditation. The one next to that is our current American Contradictions exhibition. So that is our America 250 exhibition, and that is up currently up until the end of March. And then the one to the far right is actually our Threads of Land exhibition, and that was an entire wall mural timeline. So when the house first opened in September of 2022, that was the first thing people saw on the walls to understand the significance of the land, the significance of the space, and the passage of history and land over time. So that's one of the ways that we keep the history active is we have these rotating exhibitions, and they rotate out every 6 to 9 months. Another way we keep the history alive is we have gotten into schools. So we recently went into Future Public School and created a light activity for some of the kids to do. So we went in and introduced them to Mrs. Heyman, introduced them to her as a change maker, getting them comfortable with her story. And then we kind of brainstormed with them. What does making change look like to you? How have you made change today? And we actually had them draft letters on what they would like to change in their neighborhood, what they would like to change in this neighborhood. In addition to that, we gave them an activity. It was kind of an affirmation activity based on our Afro Blue exhibition, which were self-portraits. And so we took those into the schools and we asked them, identify the person that you think looks confident, that looks brave, that looks joyful. And the kids had such a blast going to different faces and explaining to us why they felt that way. They also got the opportunity to make their own self-portraits. And then our main way of keeping this space alive is through our programs and events. So we have hosted to date over 40 community programs. We offer those programs to the public at low cost or free. And the whole point is to amplify the story of Mrs. Heyman and the River Street neighborhood. So some of those are in the form of panel presentations, cultural celebrations, artist talks, performances, exhibition openings, workshops. I've passed along to you our cultural program guide so you guys can kind of get a flavor of what we're doing, the kind of programming that we do put on. Those are largely happening every quarter. So the one that I gave you is for January through March, but every quarter brings a different kind of collection of programs. So I hope that you all will get curious and maybe pop into one of those. In addition to that, we offer daily guided tours and self-guided experiences as well. so people can learn more about Mrs. Heyman in the River Street neighborhood at their pace and also in a much more extensive time. Thank you all so much for allowing me to share this space with you a little bit. I hope to see you all in there soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Tanisha after that? Just want to give everybody an opportunity if there were any questions. Thank you so much, Tanisha. That was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I had just a couple of kind of interesting crossover comments for the this one on the bottom left, this wall was done by Stephanie Inman, and it's actually an inspiration for a piece that we'll be doing at the community center, a history wall that uses this one was specific to the Irma Heyman House history, but we'll do it for Meridian history at the community center. So that was kind of a cool, it's like a wall vinyl piece. And then in the handouts, you see the artwork on here. This artist, Evan Smith, was actually at Initial Point Gallery back in like October, November. So kind of cool to see some crossover.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we are next we have Meredith joining us. Everyone should have received an email from Cassandra with an updated packet from VIA. And so Meredith is going to review our public art master plan update. And I'll turn the time over to her to do that.
Hi, everybody. I've also joined here with by Erica
Oh,
Fiola
it's
from
really
my
quiet,
office.
Meredith. Let me see if I can increase the volume, or if you can increase the volume on your end.
I don't know if I can do that. Well, actually, let's see what I can do. I'm just going to keep talking while you're testing my microphone. Microphone.
I can hear Meredith really well. Can the people in chambers
Yeah.
not hear the online
I think we
folks?
just fixed it. I got it.
Okay, you got it.
all
Okay.
good?
All right. Phew. Hi. Anyway, I was just saying I'm also joined by Erica Fiola from our office here at Via Partnership, and we're excited to be here today. I'm going to share my screen. Get you in the full screen mode. And I know that Cassandra did share some materials with you all ahead of time. But what I would like to do today is just give you a real high level update on where we are in some of the components of the public art master plan. I'm going to focus on the draft mission, vision, and goals, share some initial priority opportunities for public art, and then a few things we've been working on in the section on planning. And so you might recall the last time I was with you all, I don't know if it was your last meeting, but it was the last time I got to join you for a meeting. We went over the outline for the entire public art master plan. So what we'd like to, just to put these sections in context today, we're just going to be looking at the mission, vision, goals, opportunities, really focusing on priority opportunities, and then again the annual plan process itself. So with this first section, the mission, vision, goals, what we'd really be interested in hearing from you all is, does this feel like Meridian? Is there anything that's missing or anything that's not clear or that you feel doesn't belong in these statements? And we'll be open to getting some feedback today, and then we can incorporate that into our next draft. With the mission statement first, I always like to sort of look at the larger mission of the Meridian Arts Commission. So here's your mission statement, which you all should be familiar with. They're to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance quality of life. for Meridian residents and visitors. So that's your mission. So our challenge then is to think about a mission for MAPS specifically, for the public art program specifically. So, you know, and I always sort of put these questions in here because it's always good to sort of remind ourselves the difference between a mission and a vision and goals and things like that. So the mission is really answering that question, what do we do? So what does MAPS do? And we've sort of boiled it down to these 4 bullet points. So commissioning, inquiring public art, stewarding the city's public art collection, promoting the community's access to and engagement with public art, and then partnering with other entities to create public art in Meridian. So I'll stop there for a second and see if there are any questions on the draft mission. We can always come back. I'll just kind of keep moving. So the vision statement,
Meredith, I think
then,
we had a question. The mic
Oh,
just
okay.
wasn't on. Hold on.
Okay. Thank you.
I think in the section on maps, it might be a very, very good idea to state specifically where MAPS funds come from.
Oh,
Especially-
absolutely. Yeah,
especially
that
for
will
new-
happen in the plan itself. There'll be a whole history of the program, where the funding comes from. There'll be a whole section on funding. So this is just a statement in isolation
All right.
in the plan itself. But thank you. Yeah, the context is really important. So the vision then really answers the question, what is the impact? And I like to think of what is the impact of your work, you know, what is the impact of the art itself? So it starts with this public art in Meridian. So what is public art doing? Public art in Meridian builds the city's unique identity, rooted in place and community, develops Meridian as a creative and engaging city for all ages, and transforms public spaces into distinctive, engaging destinations that connect past, present, and future. So that's the ambition with your art program. And then I'll go back to the goals because the goals sort of elaborate on these 3 ideas. So this idea of unique identity, creative and engaging city, and distinctive, engaging destinations with sort of elaborates on each of those. So unique identity and sense of place. So public art will strengthen Meridian's distinct identity by reflecting its heritage, landscape, and community character. Creative and engaging city means that public art will demonstrate the Meridian values, creativity, and cultural expression while prioritizing interactive experiences that engage families and people of all ages. And then that distinctive and engaging destinations. So as Meridian continues to develop, public art will transform public spaces into attractive, engaging environments that people actively want to use and return to. So any thoughts or feedback on the vision and goals?
When I read through those, what stood out to me especially was, and I really liked that you added it's environments that people actively want to use and return to because they're that good and that interesting and engaging. I really liked that was added in because it's not just you go and see something once or go visit a place once. You want to go back. I really liked that part of it, that detail.
Hopefully this language feels familiar and that we really tried to do was capture all of the ideas that we were getting through the public engagement and through the Imagine Art Here and try to distill those down into these ideas. I'll keep going for the interest of time. So this next section in the section in the plan, we'll have what we're calling the priority opportunity section. And as it says here, sort of this section highlights priority opportunities for public art. It identifies projects with a strong potential for impact, visibility, and feasibility. And then, provides an overview of where investment and planning efforts can be most effectively directed. So it's a big list. It really is sort of sort of a snapshot in this moment of time of where, based on our analysis, based on the Imagine Art Here workshop, based on our conversations with different city departments, where these opportunities are. And we'll get into sort of the annual work plan process in a minute, but this provides a starting point um, for Cassandra and for the commission to put together an annual work plan each year. You get to sort of look at these inventory of opportunities that we have in the plan, but then of course things change, right? And so it could be 2 years from now that the city decides to prioritize a different park for development, or that some other development might happen where it makes sense to change, or there's a new project, or there's a project that we thought was going to happen that's not going to happen. So this is also just a snapshot in a moment of time, but each year you'll have to sort of do the research to put that plan together. So this is a pretty high level review, but once we get into the plan itself, the plan will include a project overview. It'll include initial goals for each project. It'll include some technical and timing considerations and next steps. So you'll have a fuller picture. It'll be more than just the sentence or two that you received in the summary. So, Erica, did you want to go through any of these?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, so we're starting here with parks. And so first we have Kleiner Park. And so the opportunity here is really focused around a space near Memorial Plaza. And so a piece that would be focused on legacy and remembrance would be an opportunity in Kleiner Park. In Settlers Park, obviously there's an opportunity here with the new community center. And so, building on that, looking at an iconic, public art piece that really reinforces Meridian's identity and the settlers' history. Fuller Park. So through a lot of our engagement, and through research, we kept hearing about, Fuller Park's trees and, that it's, a nice, scenic nature area. And so really emphasizing that and building on that. And then
Can I ask, are these in priority order? Is that?
They're not. So as we go through the process, we will continue to sort of narrow this down and put in some priorities and some timing and a little bit more detail around, how these might roll out. And sort of to Meredith's previous point, that might change and things might shift. But the plan will get into that a little bit more deeply. So at this point, it's really just a list of opportunities. I think if there were thoughts on that, we'd certainly be interested to hear them. Okay, so I'll keep moving, and then certainly again, if there's thoughts on how these are sort of prioritized or thought about, we'd love to hear it. Okay, so next is Fields District Park, and really the opportunity here is that there's a big chance to identify public art as the park is being developed and constructed. So taking advantage of that, both from, getting in sort of at the ground floor, but also the efficiencies that come with being able to implement public art while the park is being developed. And then so a few other parks, Bear Creek Park. So looking at the fact that it's a neighborhood focused park, and then also sort of in collaboration with the Stoddard Road improvements that are occurring currently. Gordon Harris Park, so looking to integrate along the Reidenbau Canal pathway and public art that supports future trail development. Eighth Street Park, some small scale placemaking art, and then Tully Park. There's already some pretty distinct pieces of public art there at the skate park, and so just continuing to build on that. And you received a memo in advance, and so there you do have a little bit more detail about each of these opportunities in that memo. And as Meredith said as well, the plan will go into even more detail. So this is just a quick overview. All right, we can go to the next one. So then we also looked at downtown and community facilities. So looking at downtown gateways. Landmark gateway art that sort of welcomes people into downtown at key entry points. And so this could be archways or, large scale markers, but something that, lets people know they are entering downtown at those key entry points. Looking at a downtown festival street. So this is something that is happening and being planned for. And so just continuing to monitor that and think about ways to integrate public art into this, event-focused street design. And then looking for opportunities to do a rotating downtown public art program. And so looking for places that it would make sense to maybe put some platforms in or places where a rotating art program would make sense. And to the point that was made previously, the goal here is really encouraging that repeat visitation. So if it's a rotating program, there's new exciting things to see, and it's changing, and so it brings people downtown. And then also looking at Cherry Lane Library, and there's some renovation happening there currently, and it's a well visited and centrally placed library, so lots of opportunity there to look at community focused art. And then we're also looked at transportation and pathways. And so the Lindner Road corridor, lots of opportunity there. Building on the traffic box mural. So that's been such a successful program in Meridian. So continuing to do the mural wrapped traffic boxes. Continuing to partner with Valley Regional Transit to do the artist designed transit shelters, and then finding opportunities to integrate public art within the pathway system in Meridian that supports wayfinding and identity. And I think that's sort of it for the general priority opportunity list. So I don't know if there's
Any questions, anything that was you're surprised to see on the list that's missing from the list? You want to make sure we have on the list.
Hi, I just had one question about on the previous slide, the downtown, the rotating downtown public art program. Would any of these have examples? When I saw that, one of the things that came across my mind was I think there's a great example of what that could be from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, if you guys are familiar with that program, and made me wonder whether things like that could be explored examples and whether that needs to be included within these kind of listings where those ideas might come from or be examples that we can look at to explore and say, oh yeah, we want to do that, or
That's a good idea. So the project here, if you can see my mouse on the far right, that's actually from a rotating sculpture exhibition program in O'Fallon, Missouri, near where I live, that we helped to launch. And absolutely, I think with some of these ideas, we can cite precedents. We can also, you know, in the final designed plan, we can also include images like these to sort of help people sort of envision what some of these projects might be able to accomplish. And we'll annotate those as well so that you know, like this is a project from Sioux Falls or this is a project from O'Fallon. Um, but I think sometimes you're absolutely right. Like seeing examples or seeing that this is you know, this is doable, this has been done before, it certainly can help advance some of these ideas.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and I think that's great, but if it also included instead of just pictures, but links for people to be
Mhm.
able to go to and see what's going on in those examples.
Sure. I think that's a nice idea.
Question for you. With a rotating show like that, who usually is in charge of that and how often do they rotate? I've never heard of one of those before, so
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, sure. You know, it's interesting. We helped to launch the project example I'm showing in O'Fallon, Missouri, and that was in 20, it's almost been, I guess it's been over 10 years. Um, so my information is a little dated on that, but what we did when we launched that program is we did sort of a survey of different programs. Um, in this case, the rotating program is run by their public art program, so their equivalent of MAPS. There are similar programs across the country and that they typically, you know, stay for 1 to 2 years. The artists are paid a fee or, you know, it's some places call it like a lease, you know, so you're leasing the artwork. Sometimes it's referred to as a stipend. Um, the city is usually responsible for pouring the pads or maybe there's a collaboration with the property owner or developer to pour a pad or a foundation or a plinth. And then the artist essentially is loaning or leasing the artwork to the municipality for a period of time. Um, so that fee generally covers the cost for transportation and installation of the work and then removal of the work after a period of time. But usually it's about a 2 year period that they would rotate. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's longer. It kind of depends on the program. It could be a very fun idea for downtown and maybe for other parts of the city as well, you know.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this is one that I talked about with Meredith, and we did have on some initial like longer term plans. It's something I've looked at in several cities, Orange County, Lee's Summit, I think, and there's one in Colorado. And I looked at the one that Patrick mentioned. So there are lots of cities that do these. It is I think at this time I don't quite have the bandwidth to do this, but Boise also has one plinth that they have that's kind of in the Lennon, like near the Lennon building, and they have student artworks. And so there's a great, I have the blueprints for them for this plinth, and it would be nice to have multiple ones. And I've talked to some other counterparts to myself in Nampa and at Jump and at the museum, you know, and if we could get like several of these in the valley and potentially rotate through them, it's an idea. It's something that I would love to have in the plan that is probably a longer term thing as bandwidth. But it is a great idea. And there are a lot of really great examples of this.
Other questions? Well, I know that you have the memo too, so if you have, and I think some of you have sent some thoughts in writing on to Cassandra, and I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to, if you do have additional ideas or thoughts, please share them with her. I'm going to go on to the next section. We just have a couple of topics we wanted to share with you that we've been working on. One is the annual work plan and budget. So this would be the process that you would go through every year to develop your work plan. And it would include all of the projects that you're expected to begin in the coming fiscal year, plus all the projects that are carrying over from the previous fiscal year. And then you could also do projections for, up to 4 years, if that made sense for you all. So you could start to think about like, okay, well, maybe this isn't a 2027 project, but maybe it makes sense as a 2028 project. You can start to build that out so that when you pick it up the following year, you can be like, oh yeah, we were thinking this would be a good 2028 project, etc. We're recommending, we're going to talk, I'll sort of walk through the process, but that you develop what we're calling an annual work plan task force to help develop the work plan. And it would include 5 and maybe up to 7 members, 3 from the Art Commission, 1 from the Parks and Rec Commission. We'd want to have at least 2 members with some sort of professional expertise in the arts, and at least 1 with some professional expertise in environmental design, urban design, planning, architecture, landscape architecture. And so if you do the math on that, that doesn't necessarily add up to 5 to 7. So some of those folks could be overlapping in terms of their expertise, but coming from those different places. And I apologize because the type on this is a little small, but basically it would be this sort of these sort of steps. So the arts and culture coordinator, Cassandra, would collect information regarding potential public art projects and program opportunities as well as conservation needs. So she's going to refer to the public art master plan. She'll refer to the previous year's annual work plan. And then she'll also be meeting with different city departments to learn about different projects that they're working on. That might be opportunities for collaboration, as well as outside partners like Valley Transit that you might be able to collaborate with on projects, and will help sort of gather, these are the projects that would potentially make sense for this coming fiscal year, and would present that to the task force for discussion. We'll have some criteria for evaluating opportunities in the plan, and that would help guide that conversation. And then the task force, we sort of have this as in here as an optional, but you might also decide that you want to do some site visits to look at some of the potential locations that are discussed. So there might be, parks that you're not familiar with as a group, or things like that, where it might be helpful to do a field trip, not required, but wanted to sort of put that in there. And then based on the recommendations of the task force, Cassandra would then develop a draft and then would present it back to the task force for feedback and your endorsement. And then it would go to the Full Arts Commission, and then ultimately to council as part of the, basically to be incorporated into the Parks and Rec budget for approval. So those are the steps. We haven't put a timeline to this, but we will in the plan. But I just wanted to get first your sort of overall feedback on the steps and this idea of the task force.
Yeah, Meredith, I have a question of in going through this. First off, this is great. I mean, I think what you guys have put together is amazing, and it brings back ideas, and what it shows is the great potential for growth here in Meridian for public art. And I'm wondering if, like in this section, if there isn't a way to include something and a recommendation or a strategic goal for a plan to consider or pursue capital development project percentage for art. As the only thing we have right now is the MAPS funding. And, you know, in pursuing or, you know, hoping to pursue a majority of these projects, you know, MAPS isn't going to be able to cover all that. And so a discussion on funds to expend and more funds as needed, so that becomes a part of, and looking down the line for, you know, helping to finance these projects or projects the community and the commission want to have
Right.
happen.
Yeah, Cassandra, I'll let you jump in on this too. I mean, I think what we've observed right now is that you know, and actually it's interesting because since I worked with you all in 2020 to now, there were even more restrictions on the MAPS fund at that time, and so because there was a cap, with that cap removed, we now have less of a cap, and so the question is you know, is there an appetite in city council for either increasing the MAPS amount or for something like you're suggesting, a percent for art. And I think the thing that we've observed too is I think that you would also need, you know, additional staff, you know, support, and also to sort of to be able to manage additional projects. And so, you know, I think if there are recommendations that come in the plan around, you know, potentially increasing funding, it should also be, there should be some additional funding available for staff or consultants to make sure that those projects are well managed.
I totally agree because, you know, I mean, I think Cassandra is now as kind of a single is probably pushed to that limit. And I think that's a discussion we should get going and have. And if it's, you know, appropriate in this plan to have it mentioned so we can start moving in that direction.
Yeah. You know, I think, you know, and I think we'll get some direction probably from, you know, from the mayor or others about how far to take it in the plan. But I think we can certainly lay out what those options might look like, and some recommendations about, you know, evaluating what's going to make the most sense for the city moving forward to sort of increase its funding and staffing.
Thank you.
Other thoughts on the task force or the steps here?
So I have a question. It's kind of more for Cassandra with this. So in the past, we had subcommittees that kind of would do this, and we've gone away from that. Would we still draw from the idea of we form a subcommittee as each task comes up, or how would that work?
Thank you, Commissioner Paulson. That's a great question. So the task force, it's a little bit different because instead of being a subcommittee of MAC, which is, you know, it goes through the open meeting and noticing and things, it would be a task force of the city, which brings in some of those other people. And so the makeup of the group would change each year to get different perspectives and voices. And it has a pretty clear goal, like this is what the outcome of the task force will be. So I think this is a good direction to move the task force and using Arts Commission members, but not being a subcommittee of MAC, but a task force of the city, if that makes sense. Which is what we're doing the task force for the community center, for example. Not a subcommittee of MAC, but a task force, which isn't subject to the same open meeting and MAC regulations.
But I think to also answer your question, there would still be project-specific task forces for artist selection, like with the community center. So this would just be to develop the work plan. But then, and we'll talk through at the next meeting sort of artist selection processes, but this would not take the place of running separate having separate panels or separate task forces um, for those selection processes.
Thank you.
Just touch on a couple of other things really quickly. We will have some evaluation criteria in the plan as well. So the evaluation criteria we mentioned here is being important and sort of helping you prioritize those opportunities. And they'll fall into basically these sort of four sort of topics. Like one is really around vision alignment. So is this a project that based on sort of the potential content or the potential sort of focus of the project will help support the overall vision of the program. Some criteria around location. So, does it reach a broad audience? Is it in a highly visible location? There might be some questions around, is it are you placing art sort of in different parts of the city? Experience. So, again, what's that sort of experience of the art, the potential for experience? Can it be experienced on foot? Is it a drive-by? And then resources, gets into things like, is there a sufficient budget? Is there sufficient staff time? Are there sufficient resources to do the project well? So those will be outlined in the plan, and they're really framed as questions, not as like a like a matrix necessarily, but the kinds of questions that the task force would be sort of asking themselves as they evaluate those different opportunities. Another tool that we outline is the project plan. So so when you then sort of start the commissioning process, sort of as you're building the call for artists, this is sort of all the information you would want to have collected before you built that call for artists. So location, expected lifespan, project goals, evaluation criteria, budget and funding sources, project schedule, that artist selection committee or task force members, stakeholders, the artist scope of work, what's that artist solicitation and selection method, what community engagement strategies we'll be using, and who are the potential partners, and do you have any agreements that you need to put in place? And then finally, last but not least, this section in planning also talks about how public art aligns with different city plan. So it'll talk about how it aligns with the city's comprehensive plan, but it also will address public art in the Unified Development Code, which is the code that addresses private development in Meridian. And so the recommendations for the Unified Development Code are to establish a definition of public art that aligns with the definition in the Public Art Master Plan. So right now there is mention of public art in the Unified Development Code, but it does not really give it much of a definition. So it allows the developer basically to define public art the way they would like to. We'll recommend increasing the point value awarded for incorporating public art, and that we feel will help encourage developers to actually sort of choose to do public art if they could get more points for it, but also sort of sets the expectation that the quality of that art will be worthy of the points. And then finally, it creates a process and a set of criteria by which the city reviews and accepts the developer's public art contribution. So right now, there isn't really a process, so the developer can kind of do whatever they want, call it art, and get the points without there being any sort of critical eye on that. So those are the recommendations. And we've had some conversations with the city planning office, and they seem very supportive of this path forward and hopefully making it a stronger relationship with developers contributing public art.
So a real quick question for you. I kind of understand the point value system, but just to clarify, that's basically if they put public art, then they get like discounts on like
Yes.
taxes or whatever.
Well, no, actually they don't get discounts. Basically for certain types of residential development in Meridian, developers are required to provide certain types of amenities. It's part of the zoning. So they might have to provide a certain, number of trees or
Fire pits, benches,
fire
plaza
pits, right?
space.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, thank you. I was not going to come up with a list. I was freezing there. It's sort of a checklist, and each of those amenities is assigned point value, and they have to get so many points in order to satisfy their zoning requirement. And this is, the public art is on there right now as a way that they can meet their point requirement, but I think it's just like 1 or 2 points. It's not very many points. And so not desirable. If you can do a fire pit for more points than you can do a public art, they're gonna go for the fire pit. Don't quote me there. So that's sort of the motivation.
If I turn myself on. Within that range with developers, is it possible for a percent for art program to be incorporated into that so that they got more points for doing a percent of their, or what percent they choose to do
Yeah.
for theirs, to do a public art within that development?
The current way that the zoning is written, I mean, it's a good question. It's not really evaluating any of these um amenities based upon the cost of the amenity. So right, they might have, we'll pick on fire pits. They might have fire pit is X number of points, but they don't say, and you must spend X number of dollars on your fire pit. And so it's not really structured to be um to be dollar driven. And I think but I do think that becomes very challenging too, because then the developer is sort of left to try to guess what is going to be acceptable. So that creating a process and a set of criteria by which the city staff reviews and accepts the developer's public art contribution could then potentially get into some expectations in terms of scale and quality of the work that could be also tied to how much they're spending. So it wouldn't be a percentage of the overall, say, construction project, but there could be some expectations in terms of how much they're investing in public art as part of their development. That's something I think we need to probably pursue with the developers a little bit more, to make sure that it sort of passes muster with the zoning code.
Yeah, I was just
But
thinking
the question's a really good one.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the percentage being, if a developer said they would give, put 1/10 of 1% of the cost of their project, into public art within the development, or, 2/10 of 2%, to define it that way, because the only thing they have to work off of is the total cost of the project they're talking about developing.
Yeah. I mean, there are some places that put a dollar value on it. So they might say, to get your points, you need to spend at least, $100,000 on the art, or, whatever that might be. But that is something we'll have to think through, is what is that, or that you will have to think through, is what is that criteria, and it is part of that criteria, evaluated based upon sort of how much they're investing in the artwork. Um, the other thing, I mean, we did ask about is, could a developer, in lieu of doing public art on site, make a contribution to a public art fund or something like that. And we were told that's probably not, possible. But I mean, that's another thing that, I think to continue to sort of keep in the back of your minds is that could also be a nice way, for a developer that may not have a good site for public art, but you might have a good site, in a park adjacent to a development or something like that. So.
Yeah, I was thinking of that association of, if it's not in the development, then what's the nearest neighborhood park that they could contribute to?
Yeah.
And
That would be
another question I had that crossed my mind when reading through this was and it goes kind of back to the ranking of parks or, how do we decide which, is there any way, or do you know of that the city or cities have information on the number of citizens of the population that takes advantage of a park to rate them or
Yeah, I
rank them
mean,
potentially?
you guys might have those kinds of numbers. I mean, I would imagine, I mean, I think most parks departments do. And, so I'm based in St. Louis. I actually do some work with the St. Louis County Parks, and they now are using technology to do that. So they use something called Placer AI, and it is it Placer, is that right? And they're able to use cell phone data to to sort of track the number of users of
We actually
parks and
looked into
things like
that
that.
Placer application. It is very expensive.
It's very expensive. Yeah, but they don't do it for every county park. They just do it for the big ones. And it's also a little creepy, but it's fascinating. It's fascinating. But I would imagine that the Parks Department, even without Placer, still has some counts that they have for parks. So that could become part of your criteria in evaluating your park opportunities, is to look at usage
Mhm.
in your criteria.
Thank you.
I don't think we have that kind of data to my knowledge, but I can ask.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. It says on it when we're talking about the Unified Development Code with the developers and with planning, it says it should be amended in the future to address these things and have these things changed. What's our timeline? Like, I don't even know what the process is. What are we looking at for planning and for the city to amend this for developers?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. We had those conversations, Cassandra, when I was there, I want to say in the fall, with the planning department. And I think they would probably come in and here, I'm going to stop sharing. Well, say I can't, so I will still won't be able to see you, but you might be able to see me. They were, I think they would go in and make those amendments when they're making other amendments to the code so that it was sort of all done at the same time. So I don't know the answer to that question. I think, Cassandra, we should probably follow up with the planning department and make sure that we're not missing, a window of opportunity with them. Because that would, I think, require council action and, uh, as well as I would imagine your planning and zoning or planning department. So. Other questions?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I guess I'm curious if any of those opportunities in particular stood out to you as personally particular high priorities, or if there's anything that was surprising or anything that we missed that should be added. And if not, then we did a great job. So
Right. Well, and if you need more time, that's like we said, that's fine. We're gonna keep working through the other sections of the plan. So it's not too late after this meeting if you have sort of an aha and have other ideas you want to share with us, please do share them.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of based on that question is in this list of where, the parks, the downtown area, in that if they're getting information on or some kind of statistic on, or estimate on where they might exist presently in development or potential, and which ones are farther out than, so that
Yeah.
we have at least a line to look or a grouping to look at and going, oh, this is in the next year, this is 10 years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can say like, this is a project where you're going to want to try to do it in this window because the Parks Department has already budgeted funds for something or whatever. And there might be ones that say, this is a project you could do anytime because there's no related project that it has to be tied to. So yeah, we will definitely put those kinds of timing considerations into the document. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time today. We really appreciate it and your good questions and your feedback. And we'll keep working with Cassandra and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting with more fleshed out draft. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Meredith, for all your help with that. We appreciate that. We're going to move on. We need to have Breckenbird present a proposition to us regarding a group presentation for the gallery. So I'm going to turn the time over to her to present that to us.
All right. Can you guys, hear me? Hi. I haven't stood up here for a while. So these are examples of work by Mary Canswick. She is a poet. So in August, there will be a show at Initial Point Gallery called With Water. And there's a group that all applied together. In that group is Claire Remsburg, Betty Mallorca, Jennifer Mangiatini, Jill Story, Joyce Green, and Toni Morse. So they all applied together as a group with a concept, and then later had an idea of including a poet in their group, kind of maybe not considering it artwork, but the poet has put together posters, so they will be framed and hung on the wall. So that is artwork, and we need approval to include this poet in the art show from you guys. But so she has created 6 posters. These are, I've confirmed with her, these are all her images. She took these photos, so they're her images, they're her poems over the top. So I think Claire Remsburg's kind of the touch person for the group, from what I can tell, and she's sort of, her vision is to have potentially like one poster or a couple posters on each wall to kind of tie the show together. And then I have been talking to Mary back and forth a lot, the poet, and she, if accepted into this group, is actually considering potentially sharing a poem out loud at the opening reception, which I think would be nice. So let's see, did I tell all things to you? Yeah, so basically what we need from you guys is kind of just like a vote on what you think about. So I'll let you kind of glance at these.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Is there room for this? I mean, what does that mean? How does that impact the rest of the exhibit?
Thank you, Sean. I think so I think like I'm not sure how many works these artists are putting up. I might need to glance back at the application, but they're the ones that have put forth this poet, so they seem to think there will be room, and we can at the install troubleshoot, these things. Yeah. So, and she has created 6 images, and she's flexible on which ones we display. So we can, I think we at least 4, but we can take out a couple of them.
Brecken, just a quick question and observation. I think it's a very, very good idea. We haven't featured poetry, to the best of my knowledge, for a really long time, if ever, at Initial Point Gallery. And with Claire being the point person for this, I'm not worried about it, but we do need to be sure that this poet's poetry conforms to the values of Initial Point Gallery, which is not political, not religious, not violent, and not erotic. Okay, because we just really have to be careful with that. We don't want that cat thing happening again. Because it would be pathetic if this poet came with all sorts of printed material or whatever, or a plan to recite something that would cause riots or civil disobedience. We haven't had it before, but we have to be really, really careful. So.
Thank you, Lizzie. Yes. And we agree. And that's why, so that's why you guys these are the materials that will be on the walls. So you will approve that, hopefully today, if you guys decide on that vote. But yeah, so this is all the material that will be on the walls. But as far as the actual, if she chooses, she hasn't confirmed, I mean, obviously, if she's going to present, but if she does, I will ask for the materials that she would present that night, and we would review that. So there was no obscenities.
Can you go back to page 1 for a second?
Question for you. One thought that as you were talking and as I was looking at these, and it made me wonder whether or not, because poetry is, at least for me, is so much better when I hear the poet read it and recite it. And the thought crossed my mind of wondering what the potential or possibility would be for her to record her readings of them. And if there were a QR code on these, that then viewers could, viewing the artwork, could look at go to the QR code and hear her reciting her poems that they're looking at. And whether, just wondering whether that could ever be, you think that'd be a possibility for her?
So Patrick, I think as far as like me working with that artist, it would just depend on what her availability and bandwidth was to make those recordings. And then like at the time, I guess what mine would be on sort of coordinating that. But it's a good idea. There was we did a Bosco exhibition a couple years ago where they did something like that, and I think it was kind of a undertaking, and they made the sort of technology part of it, I don't know if I'm like super comfortable coordinating, but yeah, it's an interesting idea for the future. We haven't incorporated sound into our spaces before, so yeah, I'll think about it. Okay.
Well, I'd make a motion.
That's where I was going next. Do we have a motion to approve this proposal?
I so move.
Okay, Sean moves.
I second.
Thank you. Crystal seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Is that for,
Was
Bobby, was that in favor or opposed?
Well, in favor, of course.
all right. Thank
okay,
you. Guys.
motion passes. Thank you. And thank you, Brecken, for presenting that to us. Okay, we are going to move on to our reports. We're going to turn the time over to Lizzie Taylor for a review of the Initial Point Gallery.
Hi there. Current exhibit Storied Connections is probably one of the most sophisticated exhibits we've ever had at Initial Point Gallery. I have been in the gallery a number of occasions for various reasons the last week or so since the show went up, and without question, everybody who was there said it was absolutely an incredible show. The art itself is outstanding, and I would particularly like to give thanks to the people who were involved in hanging it, because hanging 22 pieces of Lawrence Manning's work is not an easy undertaking, especially when Lawrence Manning is on site. Okay.
And I think most of those things go to Commissioner Muscolo.
Well, he did go home before I started.
I've known Lawrence for many, many years, and he can be endearing, and he can also be a little bit difficult. So anyway, thank you very, very much. The opening reception was Tuesday, the 3rd, and Sean was the host. How many did we have in attendance?
48.
Very good. And just kind of an ancillary question, is there any way without forcing people to add their name to the guest book? I mean, I've been there probably 3 or 4 times and at least 15 additional people. So do I report that to somebody or just say, gee whiz, that's swell?
Sorry, is the question, what do we do with the guest book?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm there for whatever reason, like meeting a friend before we go to coffee or whatever, like 3 or 4 or 5 people are there, and I tend, again, it's kind of conditional on how I think they might receive being introduced to, I introduce myself if it looks appropriate, but you can't say you got to sign the guest book. So how do we account for those visitors? Because I note that in a report that you gave us a couple of sessions ago, Cassandra, you noted that we had hosted over 500 people, visitors. So
Yeah, Commissioner Taylor, that's a great question. So the guest book, each month we collect those and record them for mostly posterity, but it is really nice to see, if we have, occasionally we have shows where 7 pages are filled out with guests, and it's a great record of, like, we had a lot of visitors for this show. Obviously, not every single person that comes through is going to sign the guest book, but it is an indicator of how many people come through. So it's nice when they sign the guest book.
Great, thank you very much. The upcoming exhibit, which Sean will be hosting, is Abstraction, 5 Perspectives. These are all absolutely outstanding artists, most of whom I know. Not that that makes any difference. Opening reception Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 4:30 to 7, and hosting is Sean. Any questions, comments? If you haven't seen the existing show, see it.
Thank you, Lizzie. We're going to have some public art project updates presented by Cassandra next.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So my update for the Safe Passages Public Art Project is still that it's on track. I think I'm probably going to remove this project from future agendas for a while because it's just a really long-term project, and until we have something interesting about it, it's on track unless we hear otherwise. Sort of anticipated fabrication should be complete this summer or fall, but then the installation of these will actually not be happening until next year, 2027. So it is a longer term project. There's lots of tasks that you all probably are not so interested in on just like coordination with ACHD and yeah, but it's ongoing, it's on track, everything's good. So then the next public art project update is the Community Center Public Art, and there is a lot happening there. We had our first task force meeting, of which many of you were a part of. We're inviting 7 different artists. there are 4 mural artists applying for 2 different mural opportunities and 3 artists applying for a lobby installation. And then we have a lobby, like a vinyl mural history wall happening on the other side. So it's actually like 5 different projects that are happening at the community center. And so that's, we had a Q&A, I had Q&A sessions with both sets of the artists that are applying for opportunities to answer lots of questions, and gave them an informal RFP to invite these people to apply. I think we're going to have some great proposals. Their proposals are due, I think, March 1, and then our next task force meeting is mid-March, where that task force committee will review and give some feedback and maybe make some selections on those artworks. And then we'll have a final task force meeting, and then eventually it will have the selected projects for MAC to approve probably later this summer. Any questions on those public art updates? And you got a big public art update from Meredith. So as you can see, the master plan is in progress, drafting the plan.
Okay. We also have an event update on Meridian's Main Street Mix series. Cassandra, if you wanted to talk about that as well.
Yes, I am very excited about this new music series. I presented to the Meridian Development Corporation board last month, and it sounds like we have the green light to proceed in shifting from concerts on Broadway to the Main Street Mix. I sent out a survey. I think I included the commissioners, but it was mostly to the downtown businesses about day of the week, and it was kind of split. So we're going with Wednesdays. So these will be on Wednesdays in Generations Plaza, July 8th through August 12th. And we also have preliminary poster designs, which I sent out via email, and I'm going to share on screen. I would love some feedback on which poster you maybe prefer, or thoughts in general. These are preliminary, so there's no color yet. And they are, so think of these as drafts, not as finished pieces. And a couple things to point out. This is sort of like the illustrator said that she wanted to reference the clock that's in Generations Plaza, but hadn't quite figured out how to incorporate that design. And but it's kind of a mix between the banjo and the clock that's out there. I did pass this around in the Parks Department a little bit. I think the preference was leaning towards that first one just because it's cleaner and easier to read. But the one on the right has some really interesting designs. That's supposed to be the fountain. And there's also kind of an interesting, like, Meridian's Main Street Mix with the M's, like the M kind of fountain shape was kind of interesting. The text is maybe a little bit less legible, but there's some really cool design things happening in there. So with
That's
that,
exactly what I thought. I thought the second piece was really interesting also, but a little more difficult to read. So, but yeah.
Are these up for, like, are they still able to be, like, edited and stuff?
oh yes, this is draft.
Yeah, because I was also thinking, like, if possible, do you think they might be able to maybe make, like, the letters on the second one a bit more, like, maybe legible and easier to read? Like, it looks so cool, but I think some people might miss the words.
Yeah.
But I really love the design on that one. It's really, like, spunky. I really like it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, or wondering the same thing, whether the image in the center and the Main Street Mix, if they were just shortened up a little bit, and then the information on the bottom had more space to be read easier, whether or not, and then we could look at those and then be able to compare them. What do you think? Or is there even time to do
we
that?
don't get tons of revisions, so we probably need to kind of pick like, rather than further developing both, to kind of maybe go with one or the other, but give feedback. Kind of what I'm hearing so far, maybe you like the design on the right, the concept 2 better, but just the text legibility is an issue. So maybe if that one, the text legibility was much more readable, is that the one that you would prefer?
Cassandra, this is Bobby. Can you guys hear me?
Mr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they both have a lot of potential. I think the one on the right, I think what people were saying, commissioners are saying on the text, a little more legible, but Also, maybe the fountain design in the center takes up a lot of space, so you could probably shrink that a little bit and maybe use that space in the middle for some more text as a center point. It's a really strong fountain. I love it, but maybe it's taking up a little more space than needed. Otherwise, they both look fine. I'm kind of leaning towards the right one. And that's my 2 cents.
I also just noticed, wondered whether the time on the clock, if that's the one we go with, shouldn't be actually 5 o'clock when it starts.
5:30.
Good idea.
Oh, 5:30?
Yeah.
That's what it says. Yeah.
Did it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5:30. I also agree with the other commissioners. Design concept 2 shows the most strength and interest, I think. And I do agree that if we could just make those text boxes a little bit larger to be more legible, but I don't think that should be a problem. But I really enjoy the design. It's really fun.
To be my usual wet blanket, here I am again. I think the one on the right looks like a bear. It looks like a bear with a bear's face and 4 paws. And it doesn't really
Doesn't look like a fountain to you.
it doesn't look the least doesn't look the least bit like a fountain to me. I won't tell you what I think it looks like, but it doesn't look like a fountain. It just all these lines, they kind of don't cohese, and I can't see where it says the word Meridian on design concept 2. It says to me, big furry bear with paws.
That is true. I think with color it would also help. I think the sizing, like you said, in the fountain needs to be adjusted, but the color with color, it would probably make more sense as well. I think in grayscale, some is lost.
I agree with that, but where on design concept 2 does it say the word Meridian unless it's down?
You're correct on that. Yeah.
I agree with the Meridian should be more prominent on there somewhere. Yep.
I think it could be fit up with Main Street mix pretty easily if everything else is kind of shrunk down and resized.
So I'm going to add something here too. When you emailed these over, I clicked on them first to look at them before I read anything that you added to them. So when I opened these up, I was actually confused with the one on the right. I was not sure what they were going for. Once I read what the artist's intent was, I was like, oh, I understand and I see what they're going for. But I had the context of what they were looking at and wanting to include. So just looking at it without any of the, hey, this is what the artist is trying to include and why, and this incorporates downtown, I was actually a little bit confused. Like I tried to figure out, okay, what are they going for exactly? Why is it designed this way? Because this is the first time we're presenting Meridian Main Street mix, unless this, I feel like this is a little more, people are going to, if it was like this, I was a little confused, but I understood the context once you added it because it's the first time. It might be better to go with something a little cleaner and straightforward, like, hey, this is what we're doing, if that makes sense. And then every year, if we're changing the design, you know what I mean? And doing something different to showcase this year, here's the schedule and calendar of events. But that's just my 2 cents when I looked at them without any context. So.
Good point.
I think you've changed my mind. I like 1 now.
Good choice.
The letters in 1 are very readable and they're also kind of Westerny themed also, so.
I love the creativity in 2. I just don't know if that's the best way to present. We are doing a brand new thing and without any context, people going, oh, that must be the waterfall and this is the clock from downtown. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
I agree.
So.
I think you won.
1.
Is this a votable? Are we voting?
Yeah. Did you want like a raise of hands or this?
I think she has to
Maybe a quick raise of hands to see where we're at. If you have to pick between option 1 or 2, raise of hands for who would go with option 1. Oh, well, that's pretty clear. It's everyone. Okay.
Good logic, Bridget.
Okay.
Well, now we know why you're president.
No, I like to look at artwork. This is something I like to do even in the gallery. I don't like to read about the artist there. I like to look at the artwork first. I always do that and then go back and read because it can really change things. And in this one, when I open them up, I was a little confused. So just my feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't think we need a formal vote on that. I think that's enough for me to go on to move forward with the illustrator and with the designs. We are hoping to get this into the Parks and Rec activity guide, which goes out pretty soon. So I won't have a chance to show you the final version, but I hope you'll trust the decisions we make on the final version.
Yeah.
Next up, unless you have any questions on Meridian's Main Street Mix, the Morrison Center's Neighborhood Concert Series is moving forward at Bear Creek. I forget all the emails I send. I think you all got an email about that at some point. And we're also planning on presenting the Tammy DeVeard Awards in the Arts at that concert. So this is going to be a great collaboration with them. And in the email I sent, there's a link if you know any bands that would like to apply to all their summer concert series, but in particular, if you know any Meridian bands, then that would be great. And if you have any friends in Bear Creek neighborhood, let them know about the event. They've been doing these for a few years, and it's exciting that they're expanding to try one in Meridian. So let's try to make sure they have good attendance, so they come out again. And then, oh yes,
Tammy DeVeard Awards. When is that open for applications?
Great question. We haven't started working on that quite yet, but we will keep you posted. In the next few months, we'll probably develop the application process and ask you to nominate and help get the word out about that.
Yeah, was thinking about Jim Ogle. This guy is our maestro for Meridian Symphony, and he's standing down this year in May. So, I mean, the guy has been a contributor for so long that might be a nice person to include in some way.
Excellent. Yes, nominate him.
Okay.
And then the final event I want to talk to you about is Art Spark at Kleiner Park, which is the new rebranding of Community Art Party. So I think it's the catchy title kind of makes it a little bit different from some other arts events. And the alliteration of Art Spark, or not alliteration, but the rhyming is kind of nice. Although the main title name is Art Spark, in case, we ever wanted to change it. And it wasn't at Kleiner Park. Hopefully we're honing in on a better direction each year. We're changing the time frame a little bit from sort of morning, afternoon to 11 to 7 p.m. So a longer day event, bringing in beer vendors. So there will be adult beverages. Some will still do the youth performing pieces in the earlier part of the day, but then bringing in some main stage entertainment towards the later hours. And it is a longer day, so some of the art activities will do 4-hour shifts and sort of change out the art activities because it would be a lot for 8 hours for the same people to be there with hundreds of people nonstop. So that's kind of a general overview of how that is changing. And the date, we're moving off of the same weekend as Hyde Park Street Festival. We had a survey that sent out, and that August 29th was the clear preference on the date. And we are separating it from Meridian Art Week, which will still continue to be on the National Arts and Education Week in September. And we're going to kind of gear towards really focusing, maybe doing focusing on the really great things that work well and bringing that back into the art drop because we haven't seen as much participation in that. And that used to be the best, the best activity. I don't know how to quantify best, but like the most participation, and seemed like it was reaching more people. So really focusing on the art drop this year for Meridian Art Week.
I had a question about the Art Spark.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about this later as it comes up, obviously, but being that it is now more hours, could we talk about potentially compensating the live mural painters a slightly bit more for their time?
Yeah, we could look at that.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Got to pay the artists.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions at this time? Okay. Well, then, thank you everyone for attending. Our next meeting will be March 12th. Would anyone motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Thank you. Lizzie adjourns.
Second.
Thank you. Sean seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Our meeting is adjourned.